again. Hello again. Oh, that table can. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to throw the table. No, that's fine. I just. Yeah, I hope people can see the like screen well. But the when Casper appears, they'll see his slides directly, the same way you're seeing that quadrant vector search directly. So it should be good. That'll only be for the intro slides, and then once we go full screen, honestly, it'll be okay.
Yeah, good.
And then people will be able to hear because I'll have this computer here and it won't be muted. Perfect. I think we've got everything good. I can even just disconnect this one until Casper joins. And we're good. Okay.
I think we lost something from the banner.
I need to put up the banner too. Also, I don't think I can have a table just like this. This isn't realistic. It's like way too in the middle of everything. You said what? Yeah, but it's too far away in the back, right?
I mean, your goal is to be able to read the slides?
Yeah, or at least be able to see them. I don't know that reading is realistic.
No, but here's the thing. Why don't you just have it be in front of the one that's all the way over there?
What?
Have it be in front of the screen that's all the way over there where nobody's sitting.
Oh, look at you just being a level 19 genius. Wow.
Is there a table over there? Can you turn this
No, I can use the lantern or the lectern. And then it's like perfectly on it. Wow. You're a genius, Joe. You are a genius. Tu sais, en France, il y a beaucoup de personnes qui parlent français.
Ouais.
Oui, Thierry, quand même. Oui. No. We grew up speaking my brother. But my brother named him Joe, and named me Thierry. And I'm like, okay, let's give him the French name.
No, it's a French name, easy to say.
Yes. If you're in the chat, can you tell me, do you want to see the crowd or do you want it to just be the presentation? Go ahead and drop a 1 in the chat if you want just the presentation, a 2 in the chat if you want to see the crowd as well. Thank you. All right, how you guys doing? We're online. I'm talking to the people online.
We're down.
No, we're down there. I literally put that up because I thought there would be no one there, so we wouldn't mess up the view. Sorry, so we're still down there. Yeah, I should have clarified. Yeah, no problem. At least I told you before people came. Yeah, we're still up here. Hello? Okay, so I'll wait for people to find them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to this Qdrant AI Builders event. This is going to be the deep dive into MCP. We've got my colleague, senior developer advocate at Qdrant, Kasper Lukowski, joining from Poland. I think it's 2 a.m. for him right now, so shout out to Kasper for joining us. We're going to start off by an announcement from AWS. First of all, I want to say thank you very much to Jean and Oliane for organizing the event, and make sure you check out the AWS calendar on Luma. Make sure that you also go ahead and scan that and give us feedback. It helps me, it helps AWS, and you can win $25.
Okay, so you done all the work. Yeah, please make sure that you use some feedback on the event. Use the QR code there. You just need to create a builder ID. It's all free, and you actually get some DPS credits back. We do have a lot of events coming up in the following days and weeks. So we have a Luna calendar that you can have a look at and then you can register to our events. And also, if you have events that you want to promote or you want to do on the generative AI space, come up to us. We're happy to have our partners and our builders just inhabit this Loft. And thanks a lot for Jay and the rest of the board team for doing these great events here. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions around it all, around the US or around the upcoming events.
Perfect. So I see some comments that you want the screen raised up a tad bit. Henry, if you don't wait 1 second for me to just go adjust the screen down here before we get started. So the next presentation we're gonna have is from Smithery AI, and Henry's gonna tell you more about Smithery, but I just wanna say thank you, Henry, for coming out tonight, and the floor is yours, Henry. Go right ahead.
All right. Thank you, Qdrant, for having me. So today I'll talk a little bit about Smithery. Quick thing about me first. My name is Henry. Previously, I was working on a startup called Qdrant AI. Last year, I exited the startup, and I started exploring different AI agent topics. And that kind of led me to build Smithery in around December last year. So a little bit of an origin story of maybe MCP and Smithery. I'll let Qdrant get into a deep dive of how to build an MCP later in their talk. So I'll talk more at the high level about MCPs and the landscape as well. So around November of 2024 last year, Qdrant released this thing that was a little bit obscure. It's called Model Context Protocols. And when it was first released, I checked out this protocol. I thought it was really cool. That is an open protocol. It was promising to do something that the ChatGPT store wanted to do, but in a much more open fashion. But the most interesting thing about MCPs is that there was a vibrant developer community. And this vibrant developer community started all the way back when it first launched. You can see the number of GitHub stars that MCP has gained over time. The problem with MCPs, though, which is what I discovered when I was kind of tinkering around with different MCP servers, was very hard to discover. This is an example of a list you can find on GitHub of people listing out a bunch of MCPs. It's also pretty hard to use, right? We have these developers creating open source projects, they put up the installation instructions, and it's just a bunch of different steps, right? And that's kind of how I started Smithery. Smithery started off as a registry to organize these different MCP servers into a single place. I then evolved Smithery into a sort of Vercel for MCPs. So it's a platform where you can deploy MCP servers easily with a single point from GitHub. I provide hosting, and I distribute your MCP to all the users who are using Smithery MCP servers. So just to illustrate what this looks like, here's a quick demo of Smithery. You go on our landing page. It's kind of like Netflix, but for MCPs. There's a catalog of MCPs, different categories. These are all created by the development community. And let's say you're a developer, you want to add a new server. All you need to do is connect your GitHub. I'm going to select an example reference server here. Let's call this GitHub. And I just press create. And once you create a server, we pull your GitHub source file, kind of like yourself. We build your MCP server, and in a minute, it will complete. And while that's loading, I just want to show a cool case study of this one MCP server that I kind of like. They launched their product called Magic.dev on Smithery about a month ago, and since then has gotten about 70K tool calls. So if you're wondering what this MCP does, it actually gives, so it gives your kind of cursor, windsurf, or VS Code find different UI components. And it helps you kind of generate UI much faster and leverages a Qdrant library for developers. So this is an example of like interesting MCP servers that we've seen on Spinnery. Obviously, there's quite a big catalog now, 4,000 plus MCP servers. Anything related to search, to thinking, to memory, to browser automation, and so on. So now the GitHub server is completed, deployed. If we go to the overview, you'll see that it generated all the tools to display to the user. If we kind of go to the tools page, we can actually run this. I won't run it right now because I don't have access to it. But yeah, this is an overview of what Spinnery does, how Spinnery helps developers to launch their MCPs. Okay. So the growth has been pretty crazy in the last 4 months. I think that's because MCP became sort of mainstream in the developer community. We're now partnering with Exa and EGP as well. But more broadly, there's a roadmap. I think there's a lot of interesting things to be building in this MCP space. We're going to focus on kind of serving the MCP ecosystem as an operating system. That means helping everybody in the MCP space with curation, figuring out how to solve identity, permissions, security for MCPs, making good developer experience, and potentially handling payments for paid MCPs. More broadly speaking, I think MCPs is a really cool protocol because it enables a future of potentially collective intelligence. And that means a community of people building different agentic services that can talk to each other, talk to tools, or perhaps talk about agents owned by somebody else. And maybe that's how we can have all these agents talk to each other and much overall smarter internet. So thank you. That's my brief talk about Spinnery. You can access our registry on the website. There's documentation. You can launch your MCP there. And if you want to join our team, I'm trying to settle a founding team right now. There's only 2 people right now, so it's pretty small. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much, Spinnery. Okay, we have some interesting things in the chat. People are interested. People are excited. You said what? If anyone has any questions, you can just find Henry. He will be here, and we will definitely make sure you get your question answered. Next up, we've got Arize AI. But before Arize comes up, I just want to mention, if you're not familiar with Qdrant, we are a vector database built for scale. You can take your unstructured data and get insight from it. Arize helps you with that process because they are an evaluation platform. So we're about to hear from Arize about how you can use Arize to evaluate your AI platforms. All right, give her a hand. Woo!
Hi guys, my name is Shri. I work on DevOps here at Arize, and I'm going to talk to you guys through a little bit about who we are, what we do, LLM observability, and evaluation. Okay, so just like most things, right, agents are not always perfect. And in this specific age, social media is able to really highlight them. So these are some of the best examples. My personal favorite being the pizza one, where the advice to make cheese sticks pizza is using glue. At least it was not toxic, at least using that. But regardless, you can see that it's not always perfect. So there's obviously cases like these where these are like one-offs, right? Like the agent, like the chatbot went completely off the rails. And then you just have cases where your LLM is just doing kind of poorly, like not necessarily wrong, but not helpful. And so that's kind of where Arize comes in. We're used by so many of the top enterprises around the world, whether it be financial or healthcare, startups and technology. Our product really applies to everyone, and even the everyday developer. So we kind of see ourselves in this line of the emerging LLM tool chain. So you have your LLMs, and then on top of that, you're built on AI memory systems, and then an orchestration platform, and then that's where we kind of come in. So you built your system, or you are like currently building your system, and you have to now understand and see how it's actually performing and doing. And so that's what the observability part of it is. So we have our Arize AX platform, as well as our open source Phoenix. Okay, so this is kind of the path that a lot of people fall down when it comes to challenges in the development process of making your LLM application. So when you start to build, there's really a lack of visibility into what you're doing or what your application is doing. Especially if you're using some sort of like orchestration framework, like it makes it a lot easier to build, but do you really know what's happening when you're building? And so the next challenge after that, like when you get your application to kind of start working, is like you have to start making tweaks or changes. You might have breakages in some parts of your application, but other parts that will work, and we're all very familiar with the entire process. And then let's say all goes well, right? You launch an introduction, and then you're seeing all these different errors and issues. Or like, for example, like jailbreaks of users trying to break your platform, or just in general, more acute errors and bad performance. And so you have to kind of prepare yourself to improve your application live and use your learnings of what it's doing in prod to then modify your application, and the cycle just repeats itself. So at Arize, we have all these tools that help with all these different phases. So whether it's something super early like tracing, or moving on to evaluations or experiments, and then guardrails and monitoring, or even having a co-pilot agent, just kind of better, to help you really launch your application and get all of that feedback. Arize and Phoenix both have all of that for you guys to start using. So the tool that I will talk you guys through and show you today is Phoenix. It's our open source tool, totally free. You can host it and run it yourself really, really easily. It's like one command, it's like one line of code. I'll show you that one later too. And you can run it locally, or you can use a hosted version. Whichever. So Phoenix itself is built on something called open telemetry, if anyone's familiar. So it's one of the ways that we are able to stay very flexible and reactive with all the different things that are happening in this space, since we're just already built on these industry-wide standards. Okay, before I get into the demo, these are the pillars of LLM observability. So LLM traces and spans, evaluations, prompt troubleshooting, search and retrieval, and fine-tuning. So traces, like I said, with open telemetry is just the beginning of your entire application lifespan improvement. So one thing I really want to stress is that even small changes So you change a prompt or model, and then you break the use case, and then you just keep repeating that. And this entire cycle will disrupt your application itself very tremendously. So at the end of the day, evaluation-driven development is a continuous process. And while knowing this is one thing, implementation is a whole other piece. And the hardest part is just where to start. And so one place to start, and I'm a little bit biased when I say this, but Phoenix is a great place for you guys to start, and a great product to use for all of this. So you can kind of curate the data set to work on, and then make your changes, whether that's like the tiniest change or like a really big change. And then track those as an experiment, and then once again, evaluate your experiment to then improve your score that you can get as a result. So this is going to take us into a demo. So I'm following this notebook. Is it too small? Okay, so I'm just using this notebook that I have, which is like a prompt optimization notebook. So for people that are not familiar, this is what Phoenix looks like. You have all your projects here. When you click into a project, it will take you through each of your traces, and within your traces there are a bunch of spans. So this is like the intermediary levels of your application. Okay, going back to this. So in our little notebook, the first thing that we really do, other than setting up like grading keys and whatnot, is to use we're using like a pre-med data set. So you go into Phoenix, and then you have the data set tab, you press this, and then this is all of your data set that you have. Ignore that third column, if you haven't gotten there yet. So after you do that, then you can sort of create your base template for evaluating your different inputs and outputs. So this is a really basic, you're an evaluator that decides whether a prompt is a jailbreak risk, just say jailbreak prompt, basically. Right, so when we did it the first time, we got a 72% in accuracy, or 72% in like the classification of it. So there's a bunch of different prompt classification methods that you can have, such as few shot, meta prompting, gradient, or you can using like libraries, prompt optimization libraries to really improve your prompt. And all you're really gonna change is just that base prompt, basically, is essentially it. And you'll see like as you make the changes that your evaluation responses are actually going up pretty high. I'm not gonna say that just because you use prompt gradients, all of your prompts will automatically increase every single time. But in this specific case, we're seeing a sharp incline of few shot is like the next best, and then meta prompted, and then prompt gradients. But regardless, all I changed was like my evaluation of it, and my answers are improving. So, like I said, there's a bunch of different ways within the different pillars itself to make small tweaks here and there. But regardless, it's improving your application very quickly with minimal effort. That was pretty much all I had for the demo. But if you're interested in that notebook, you can talk to me after. It's also on our GitHub. So we also have another workshop coming up related to how to improve your application in different pipelines. Similar to this, not just prompt optimization, but even more than that. Okay, back to this. So this is what I meant when I said we have two commands. So you can install Arize Phoenix, and then to run it, Phoenix serve, and that's it. So we have a bunch of instrumenters that we are partnered with. But yeah, so this is how you get started. It's just a really, really easy guide. You guys can use this very easily. Depending on what framework you're using, we have a bunch of different instrumentations to like automatically trace your application. So this is the commands if you were using CrewAI. Thank you. Thank you. This is what it would be like if you're using CrewAI, but we have about, I want to say 15 different instrumenters, or you can use your manual one, whichever, but this obviously makes it a lot easier. But yeah, that is pretty much it for me. I'd love to stay in touch with everyone, so there's my information on the left side there, right side there. That side, the smaller QR code is my LinkedIn. You can connect with me if you want to schedule time to talk through anything else. Awesome. Also, please give our Phoenix GitHub repo a star. It really is super helpful for us, and kind of lets us know that what we're doing is working, and the main way that we justify really putting resources into our open source product. And we're always like working on it, new features are always added. We just started implementing MCP into our product, so we have a couple tools live already. When you ask Pod to do something, it has access to the right structured context that you need, and so it can take the right action immediately within Phoenix too. So if you also want to see that, that will be good for the rest of my some work for there probably. So come grab me, I'd love to chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. The evals, you gotta have them. And once again, just want to remind everyone, thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you to Smithery, thanks to CrewAI, and thanks to Arize. So next we're gonna have Lorenz from CrewAI. He's a software engineer. He's gonna be talking to us a bit about how CrewAI works. And once again, just a reminder, Qdrant is a vector database, open source. We focus on scaling. If you're looking to take your unstructured data and get insight from it, turn it into money perhaps, reach out to me. All right, Lorenz, you plug in here. You know
Unmute here and then run over.
How's everyone doing? Did we just come out of work? Yes, yes. Who just came out of work today? Raise your hand, raise your hand. Okay. Everybody, nice. I'm just trying to stall while this plugs in. Let's try another side. Boom. Uh-oh.
Yeah, sometimes
Da-da-da-da-da-da. What'd you do this weekend? Yeah. A lot of stuff. What was the best part of your weekend?
There we go.
Oh, weekend.
Mhm.
Oh, I actually went to dinner.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Children.
Nice.
Okay, we're back.
We're back. All right, everyone. My name is Lorenz. I'm a software engineer at. Thumbs up inside over there.
It's Monday.
Maybe one screen is dead. Shift to the left or the right. The center is not working. Okay. Everyone, my name is Lorenz. I'm a software engineer at CrewAI, and today I'm going to show off how you can go from zero to production with our AI agent framework. So, raise your hands. How many people here know what AI agents are? Raise your hands. Okay, perfect. I think my talk's done. What about CrewAI agents then? Who knows CrewAI? Okay, there we go. That's maybe 1/4 of the room. So hopefully, at the end of this talk, you guys know what you can do with our framework. So AI agents take this high-level goal, like analyze market trends of my competitors, create a marketing campaign for my product. You guys already know this. And an agent will autonomously create the steps, use reasoning, and execute them autonomously. So what about CrewAI? What do we do? CrewAI is the leading open source multi-agent framework, and we make building AI agents super easy. Our agents have a bunch of features. Out of the box, they can cache, they have memory, you can train it with reinforcement learning with human feedback, and we have guardrails. And how does this work? Typically, a crew involves a couple agents, like 3 to 5 agents, from having to research online, doing analyzing, summarizing, and then generating a report. And we do this by working in a team. You delegate, you ask questions, and these are embedded as tools. So every single agent within the crew class has these 2 particular tools that will enable each agent to cooperate and work together. We're inference agnostic. So what that means is you can bring any inference. So from Anthropic to OpenAI, NVIDIA NIMS, Grok, you name it, so you can bring any model. And you could use different models for different agents in your crew. You have 3 different types of memory. You have short-term, long-term, and entity. Together, they create contextual memory that your agents can use. So short-term memory is previous executions. Long-term memory is a way for our agents to self-improve and learn over time. So it recalls the executions over time and gives itself suggestions of how it can improve. Entity memory is understanding names, things, person, place, business names, so entities. We have ways for you to preload context to your agents. So this is called knowledge sources. Think of company docs like PDFs to spreadsheets to markdown files. These are ways for you to kind of have like static context that your crew or your agents can use. So individual agents can have their own knowledge sources, or you can just pass in a high-level knowledge source that your entire crew can have. Out of the box, we have a toolkit. So you could do things like connecting to the web, to scraping the web, to communicating with external and internal systems like a database or a web application that you own. And then you could even easily create your own tools. And we'll go over that as we build. There's ways of orchestrating your agents. So you have something called Crew, which is a fully autonomous process. Think of a Waymo, right? You have a goal of a destination, and your AI agents will kind of navigate all of the steps it needs. We have ways for you to guarantee certain things. So think of having to fetch data before you run a crew. You could use something called a before hook. And if you want to push this to like a database or to a blog post or a blog website, you could use an afterhook. Combine those two together, something a little bit more deterministic is called a flow. It's event-based driven, so you have a start method and then you have listeners, so think of them as like your routes, kind of being able to orchestrate the entire workflow of your AI agents. So you can execute regular Python code as well as crews, as well as single shot LLM. So this is where you can determine every single step of your automation workflow. So how do you iterate? How do you improve and keep on improving these outputs? We have something called test. Sri from Arize kind of mentioned LM as a judge. We do the same, where you could, based off your task description, you have a task and expected output. We take the output of a task and compare that against an expected output using LM as a judge to give a score range from 1 to 10. We have train, which is using reinforcement learning with human feedback. So after every task step, you have the ability to give it a suggestion, like, hey, maybe use a bullet point instead of a numbered list, or use these types of websites when you scrape the web. Not only does your individual feedback get accounted, but we use an LM to actually give it suggestions on how it itself can improve. So like the agents itself taking your feedback as well as giving it auto suggestions to improve itself. So that future kickoffs not only have this context, but they're improving over time. And what we notice is when you were to retest, the score is a little bit better, and sometimes it's even faster. So how do you get started? So you can do something called pip install CrewAI and CrewAI tools. But what we recommend is to use our UI Studio. This is a way for you to kind of explore a no-code, a low to no-code solution where you can pass in this high-level goal, right? Build a contract analysis use case that compares multiple PDFs that I have stored in the vector database. I want the results to be like cite every source that it's coming from, and then generate a report after that. And what we give you is all the agents, all the goals, the role, the goal, and backstories, and the tools that agents would need, as well as the tasks and the descriptions, expected outputs, and the agent assignments. And you get this like GUI where you can kind of enrich and keep modifying this. But again, if you want to enrich this, you can easily download the code and explore from a Python perspective. And that's what we're going to do for this example. So what we're going to have is take that crew that we built, and let's use a contract analysis, and let's build out a contract analysis use case. And what we're going to do is like pre-process data, right? We have a bunch of PDFs, and we want to embed them into a vector database. We're going to load that into Qdrant. For this example, we're using a tool called DocLink, which is an IBM open source tool that can pre-process documents and then store that into a vector database from Qdrant. And the agents that you get when you download the code are these three agents. We have data retrieval, we have the source cider, and then we have a report generation specialist. And from here, we can see exactly what they're going to be doing. The role, the goal, and the backstory. So like, for example, the data retrieval is extracting contracts from a vector database using our Qdrant vector search tool. Our source cider is going to take those contract clauses that we find and then kind of identify the section numbers, the paragraphs, things like that. And then we have this report generation specialist where we'll sum up everything that we find and generate that as a report that a stakeholder can use. And our tasks kind of like map one-to-one, right? So our agents are going to execute this retrieve contracts task, which will take in this query, right? So this, when you have curly brackets, get interpolated. So whatever query you pass, like, oh, how are warranties defined, right, in these two contracts? We have the source cider task that, again, your goal is to retrieve the sources for the answers for this given query. And then our generate report task kind of follows suit. So how do you use the Qdrant vector search tool, right? Again, we have a built-in native tool that lets you retrieve documents from your Qdrant vector store. And all you would have to do is add your Qdrant URL, an API key, and then the collection name from where it's coming from. And then when you define your agents, again, it's super simple. They're already defined on the YAML, but you can modify things like adding tools to setting the LLMs. And what we notice here is the first two are using GPT-4o, since they're a little bit more like retrieval-based tasks. And then GPT-4o mini for the last agent because it's something similar. It's just summarizing this as a report. GPT-4o is also cheaper and slightly faster. And then our tasks are defined, and then we're going to put all of that together for a crew. So very low code, right? And a crew consists of our agents, our tasks, and a process that we want to define. And this is how we run it. So here's our input. What are the differences in how contracts define warranties within these two companies, credit cards, Com Inc., and Digital Cinema Destination, and then we could kick them off. And what you get is something that looks like this. It has the first one, the clause, the exact source. This is cool. But this lives on my computer. People in my team can't use this. So what do? I want to maybe like deploy this into a production environment. So when you upload to GitHub and you use our platform, you're going to get a URL and a bearer token. And this can be used on a web application or a service that you have. And a way for you to run them is to do the exact same thing. We have a visual interpreter for being able to query and execute your crews. So again, you could pass in the same inputs. What are the differences in how contracts are defined between these two things? And you could kick off your entire flow from here. I'm an engineer. There's another way of kicking them off. But as an engineer, I use a tool like a Canvas board every single day, like Linear. So why can't your agents be tracked the same way, right? You have something that's waiting for execution, like a to-do. You have things that are running, and then you have things that are completed. You can see like high-level metrics of how much everything costs. We have ways, and then the end outputs. We have higher-level observability, and then we have particular traces, so you can understand every single step of what your agents are doing, from retrieval to the source cider to the report generation, what tools that they use, or the inputs, how many times did it fail, things like that. So understanding of the behavior of your AI agents and what they're doing and executing. Again, we have this test where you can determine the scores based off LM as a judge. We have hallucination results, so we give you a score based off the faithfulness of the context. So if your tool is retrieving data from like a vector search tool, but your end output is saying things that aren't even from there, we're going to detect that as like your AI agent's hallucinated, or is making up facts, or making up things. We have trains, so after every task step, you can give it a suggestion. So over here, you can edit and add more things that you want to add. And then again, higher level metrics. So as you keep iterating and deploying, you can understand, is your crew getting better? Are they spending more time executing? Are they hallucinating more? And how many tokens are you using over the course of your entire workflow? And again, how many tools? So this is metrics for determining how many tools were called and things like that. And then task executions again. So just being able to visualize how long and how much things are costing. That contract analysis use case is something that we actually have for you guys to easily download and get up and download and start to use. So all you would need is a Qdrant API key and an OpenAI key, and you should be good to go. I'll briefly talk about MCP as a follow-up to the next talk, but MCP was a protocol introduced by Anthropic where you give your LM or your AI agents context. And this context is derived from an MCP server, which is essentially a tool. This could be like a service or a script that you run wrapped as an MCP tool that you can run in any client. A client could be an agent, a client could be something like Cloud Desktop App. And what we've done is based off your URL, your deployed crew, you could run that on any MCP client like the Cloud Desktop App or Cursor. Yeah, that's it from me. If you guys have any questions, I'll stick around, but you can check out our docs, our templates, and then that's me on LinkedIn. So, thanks.
Woo! If you have any questions for Lorenz, please reach out to him. Sorry, I'm blocking the loft. It's not very nice of me. All right, awesome. So now we have the moment of truth, what you've all been waiting for. Casper, I hope you are ready. I see that you are ready. So let me add you to the screen and let you say hi to the beautiful people here in San Francisco. Oh, you're already here, baby. Oh, no, they can't see you yet. 1 second. Only I can see you now. but soon. And thank you all for joining us online. First Qdrant AI Builders stream, and it looks like it's pretty popular, so we'll keep doing it. Okay, so Casper, I am going to remove. I am going.
Okay, so I just hope you can hear me well. Unfortunately, I stopped hearing you, Thierry, but I believe everything should be okay. Yeah, hello everyone. It's a pleasure. Actually, that's the first time we are doing that. It's 3 a.m. here in Poland, so it might be pretty tough, but let's see how things are gonna work today. And yes, if you are interested in using MCP servers, then definitely I hope that you will find this session interesting, because I'm basically going to be speaking about the basics of implementing MCP servers for your own, because I still believe that many of the tools could benefit from having their own MCP tools. There is nothing new in that concept, to be honest. But this is just a pretty great addition to this whole ecosystem of the LLMs, because finally we have some standards that every single major company started to follow. And yeah, lots of interesting MCP servers are popping up. Today, 11 labs announced their MCP servers, so you are also able to create your voice assistants, for example. So yeah, it's becoming easier and easier to build some projects with just MCPs and LLMs. But yeah, let me just dive a little bit into the whole concept and describe what are the differences, because I believe some of you may have never heard about some of the features of this whole protocol, because MCP just stands for Model Context Protocol. So yeah, actually, when we started implementing our first MCP server for Qdrant, this was still pretty early on, and we didn't even anticipate that it would become so popular, because at this time, the only client that was supported was Cloud Desktop, and we just implemented a very basic MCP server for Qdrant that could actually work as some sort of personal note taker. So you could actually create some memories that would be stored in Qdrant, and then you could just search over these nodes, maybe just to find some personal details. So actually you could have like a personalized knowledge base, and that was okay. But since many other companies, except for Anthropic, who invented or who created this whole protocol, companies such as OpenAI or Google DeepMind Gemini also started implementing this standard. We knew that something is really truly going on, and that might be a really important piece, because MCP is actually just a standard, but it's nothing new compared to what we had in the past. But if you just experimented with different LLMs, then you just had to learn all the times what are the differences in, for example, setting some tools so the model can perform function calling, for example. And you could obviously use some of the frameworks that would be also possible. But if you just prefer to use models alone, that wasn't that easy. There were actually some tools such as AI Suite that made this a little bit easier, but still the differences in the APIs were just quite annoying at this point. So Model Context Protocol is a great addition, because finally, hopefully, things are going to be standardized, so you can experiment with different model providers and finally find the one that works for you without worrying that much about how do I need to run my, how do I need to create my my tools for the LLM, because there won't be any functional difference here. And there are clients and servers, and clients are actually models themselves or some tools using the models. So it might be Claude Desktop, for example, but also your coding, AI coding assistants such as Cursor, Windsurf, or Claude Code. And servers, they actually provide this additional capabilities to the clients, and that's basically it. There are tools, and this is the most popular concept that we use nowadays, and tools are actually just some sort of functions. So this functions usually call some external systems to provide some additional context. So LLM can just query them because tools have a signature, and the signature defines the parameters and the way the LLM should call this particular tool. So LLMs are already pretty good at structured output, so this is relatively easy to just provide them, provide the set of parameters we expect, and then the output of this function is returned back to the model, so it can use it to enrich its own context. And that actually reminds a pretty well-known standard, which is retrieval augmented generation, but this time it's just happening in place because we are just sending some information and getting the results back. Obviously, MCP is more than just RAG. But in case of Qdrant, this is actually a pretty easy way to implement RAG directly in the model. And obviously, tools may have some side effects. So I don't know, they maybe just put an order and on your behalf or call someone. Basically, anything that could possibly think of, depending on if you are really able to implement that. But on the other hand, we also have resources, and I know that many people, this might be confusing for many people, because what's actually a difference? If I just want to implement retrieval augmented generation, shouldn't be I just using the resources? And actually, not really. Resources are rather static URLs that define some sort of file-like objects. So it's more like an S3 bucket. And obviously you can identify points in your vector database by their IDs, but still that doesn't solve the problem of search. Search is like more dynamic because the query is not known up front. So this is more like a file system. And unfortunately, not that many MCP clients support resources up till now. Actually, tools are widely supported, and all the coding assistants will support tools, but not necessarily the resources. So the protocol specifies this kind of capabilities, but unfortunately, it's not well adopted yet. And we also have prompts, and this is pretty interesting. Also, not that well supported in the current clients, but the idea behind that is pretty nice. What if I already know how to communicate with a particular LLM? I know the set of tasks that I want to solve with them. So why can't I just have some templates for prompts? With some arguments, so I don't have to just keep them somewhere else. That might be part of the MCP server. And actually, this is an interesting idea also for coding, because you might be just performing the same tasks over and over again. Like if you write any application, that there is a lot of boilerplate to generate. And yeah, like having some templates for prompts would be of a great help. Still, it's not that well supported yet. And our implementation of the MCP server is pretty straightforward. Actually, there are just two tools. There is one tool to find some facts in your knowledge base, and the other one to store some information in the same knowledge base. It was the first official implementation of any of the vector databases out there. And if you just see some different MCP servers for different kind of databases, then actually you can see that there is like a split, because some of the products decided to provide MCP servers that can do all the maintenance tasks or administration tasks. So they can, I don't know, create tables in your SQL database, create some indexes, and run queries directly. But in our case, we didn't really want to expose all the Qdrant's functionalities. Like, we thought that our functionality, the main functionality that we have on a higher level of abstraction, is just way more important for coding, but also for just using Qdrant. And also, in case of vector databases, you still need to create the embedding somehow, and then the LLM can't just create vectors in any way. So here, this is it. And there are different ways of how you can use our current implementation of the MCP server. Before, it was mainly for these personal nodes, but right now you can, I don't know, have like a code documentation generated automatically with LLMs, for example, and you can build an inline retrieval augmented generation for anything, literally. That doesn't necessarily need to be a code. You can use some personal data, and if you connect to different MCP servers from Cursor, let's say, then you could possibly also control all the systems. So multiple MCP servers in your stack may actually not only solve the problems of software, of writing code itself, but also all the tasks that we do on our daily basis when we create any kind of software. So there is also some management involved. Maybe you want to have an MCP server that will be automatically interacting with GitHub, so it will be creating issues and then closing them, creating pull requests, maybe doing some reviews, and that's actually feasible right now. So having multiple MCP servers may actually build a powerful AI agent, even more powerful than these tools themselves. And also, what I really love to solve with the with our MCP server is to have like a reference for the API documentation. We know that libraries change over time. Different APIs might just become deprecated, or maybe in your project you just want to use this particular version of a library. That might be important if you, let's say, work as a backend engineer, backend developer, but you are also supposed to write frontend at some point. And if you are not really familiar with this whole JavaScript framework ecosystem, then you might be just struggling with doing that. And especially if you really need to focus on a very specific version of a particular framework, this is actually a great help, because you can have everything stored inside of Qdrant and use it directly in your coding AI coding assistant. And moreover, it's not only about storing the code, but as your project grows and you create more and more code, you can also store the generated snippets for further reference. And the usual workflow of any AI coding assistant is that it generates some code that you can accept, and actually you can use Qdrant just right after accepting a piece of code. So let's say it generates something that you are not satisfied with at this, and Qdrant won't keep that code inside of the collection just because you decided not to accept it. And that might be achieved with many of the popular AI coding tools like Cursor, Windsurf, Claude Code. Argument Code recently also announced support of MCP servers. So many tools have that already. And some of the typical use cases is UI frameworks like Daisy UI. That's something that we used on our recent webinar. Daisy UI, if you don't know, it's just a set of components for Tailwind that you can reuse in your projects. Those are semantic components, so you don't need to write this multiple class names when you write frontend, but you can just use some semantic names, so it's just way easier to build the applications and way easier to read the code, because you know that this particular HTML element is supposed to be like a header or something else. So actually, different problems that might be solved with RAG inside of tools like coding assistants. And actually, that would be it regarding the MCP itself, like the whole background. I would really like to do some live coding demonstration right now. I'm not really sure if that's gonna work, I have to say, because that will be the first time. I just have something prepared, and hopefully we will be able to use our Qdrant MCP server to write Qdrant's code, even if we don't know the API too much. So let me just switch to the first thing that I want to share with you today, which is the LLM-friendly dump of the Qdrant's documentation. So I'm currently checking the LLM's full.txt file from Qdrant's API domain, which is actually auto-generated from our API specification. And this is also becoming like a standard way of exposing some data in LLM's friendly format. That's also something that you could possibly find on different websites, like major frameworks, libraries, actually anything you could possibly imagine. And in our case, this is pretty straightforward. We have different API methods, and every single API method has a specific meaning. And we have examples from different languages like Rust, Python, C#, some Curl, Java, and actually all the languages that we officially support with our SDKs. And this is actually pretty interesting, because just by using this file, which is auto-generated, you could also run LLM to extract all the code snippets along with their descriptions. So the description will say what is the functionality that might be implemented with this particular code snippet, and the code snippet might be just used for reference by the model. And that's actually something that you can achieve with the MCP server. Let me just show you a collection that I created using this file that was fully generated with Gemini. I also tested Anthropic Claude for that, and yeah, like there is no difference. Actually, you can use any of this model, but Gemini is just nice because it has a pretty long context window. So that was really easy. I could just load this whole file at once. And yeah, if you just see how the points look like, there is a document property that describes which language was used and what exactly this code snippet implements. And there is also like a code snippet. So that's actually what we want to have. If you are not familiar with Qdrant APIs, this is a great help to have this kind of database, so the model can just find some relevant code snippets. And this is done specifically for the current version of the API. So you could also, let's say you have a pretty old cluster, and you would like to have a documentation for that particular version of the client. This is feasible, and that's actually a great idea, just because if you use any of these popular models, and if you just directly ask to generate some interactions with Qdrant, these models can actually do it even without any kind of retrieval augmented generation in place. I mean, the major ones, just because they were trained on our documentation at some point. But as you may imagine, that changes quite often. Like we are also going to have a release pretty soon, and we usually release a new version every minor version every 1 to 2 months. So the LLM will never be able to be really up to date with the latest changes of the API. And for example, in the upcoming version, we are going to have some query boosting mechanism. So none of the LLMs would know that. So I saw a question at the chat about the like increasing context window. Yeah, that's actually not a challenge for us, just because RAG is just gonna stay training the model, so it can always have access to the latest data. Is impossible. We could possibly try to solve that with retrieval augmented generation only. and that's also applicable for coding. So this is it, and this is the MCP server Qdrant. This is an official Qdrant repository. We already have 400 stars. This is great. If you just want to increase that number, you can also give us a star. Would really appreciate that. And there is a description of how to, what are the tools. We have Qdrant Store that takes, this is actually a preview of the upcoming version, but right now it accepts just information, which is just a natural language-like description of what we want to store with some optional metadata, and find that provides a query. Currently, you can only use a single collection, so the collection has to be provided as a part of the configuration. But in the upcoming version, the MCP server will be also able to use multiple collections. So maybe you want to mix code snippets with your personal notes. That will be also feasible, because you could at this point you will be able to provide different collections to store different types of information. So yeah, you like the configuration is pretty standard. It provides the configuration of Qdrant, the name of the collection. You choose an embedding model. The default one is pretty nice, because you can also run it on a medium range laptop. It's sentence transformers, but from fast embed, so you don't really need Torch, because it's all running on NNX backend. And the most important thing is that you need to provide the descriptions of the tools. We can see the defaults because they are defined here, and those are just kept here for historical purposes, because those are the original descriptions that we provided at the very beginning that actually allowed you to use Qdrant as personal knowledge base, and that was it. Right now, we think that it's more applicable for different use cases, but just for the people who started using that early, we are keeping the defaults. But yeah, you can install it using different ways. One interesting thing is that we support different transfer protocols, and that might be important for those of you who would like to have a single MCP server instance running for like a whole organization or for a whole team, because the many of the MCP servers which are available out there only support standard input output. So actually, you need to have the MCP server running on your machine, which is not that convenient. And server send events is actually a different transfer protocol, which is perfect for remote clients. So you can have a single instance that all the people in your team will be just using, which is nice. We support Smithery as well. And if you want to use it with AI coding assistance, then you need to provide a different description of the tools. And we provide some defaults. As you can see here, the description of the store tool is store reusable code snippets for later retrieval. The information parameter should contain a natural language description of what the code does, while the actual code should be included in the metadata parameter as a code property. The value of metadata is a Python dictionary with string as keys. Use this whenever you generate some code snippet. So this is pretty obvious, and for find, you just need to search for relevant code snippets based on natural language descriptions. And then the description of the query parameter. And this is just like an example of how to set it up. That may obviously be different in your specific case. Like in our case, we want the MCP server to produce some Qdrant related code only. Like our collection here only contains Qdrant related snippets, so there is no point in using the MCP server to generate frontend or anything else. And today I'm gonna be using Cloud Code. I just think this is really interesting. I know that there are some concerns regarding the cost of using it. If you are using Cursor, then it's just a bit cheaper usually. But I'm just experimenting with Cloud Code and just wanted to give it another try today. Here is how you can set it up. The descriptions are probably identical, so we are just gonna adapt them slightly. But yeah, let me just switch to the project itself. And yeah, let's see if we can build something with the MCP server. Just need a while. But okay, I hope you can see it already. So this is an empty project. I just created it with poetry. So here we have a name of the project and like a really basic description, and nothing else really. But I just included a specification of how to set up the MCP server, because we just need to do it before we start using Claude. Yeah, so let's just copy the default description of the find and store tools and see what are the changes that we need to make here. So yeah, when it comes to find, we want to use find. Well, this is very generic, but let me just add another sentence. Use this tool only when you want to write some Qdrant related code in Python, because we'll be using Python. And store, well, actually, I'm not sure if that makes sense in that very project to store some code, because all the API interactions are there. But yeah, maybe if we just build a complex search pipeline, that might be an interesting idea. Just for some future reference, you might be building a different project and you just want to use the same code snippets everywhere. Yeah, I think that's a valid use case. So this is the default prompt, the default description of the tool: store reusable code snippets for related retrieval. So let's say store reusable Qdrant related code snippets for related retrieval. Use this whenever you generate some code snippet that communicates with Qdrant, some Python code snippet, because we'll be using that. And these are the descriptions. Let me just export them as environmental variables. Here it is. And then I have Claude code already installed on my environment, so I can just add the MCP server. It will be called Qdrant code search. Here is a name of the package, which is MCP server Qdrant, obviously. And we just need to specify how it can connect to Qdrant. So I'm hosting everything on my local machine. I have a collection which is called Qdrant snippets, and here I'm just using these variables that we declared before. So that looks okay to me. But first of all, we need to initialize Claude project. So Claude init, it's something that we need to run. Yeah, I trust it. So it will be just scanning your whole repository to generate some markdown file, and this markdown file will be like a set of rules for Claude to perform. Yeah, it really wants to create some utils. Yeah, let's just do some vibe code. I will just accepting all the changes. Let's see how it goes. So yeah, tests, that's fine. Like we should have some tests. That's a pretty good idea. Yeah, and let's create a README, some utils, some basic structure. That's totally fine. Let's see how it goes. No, actually, here it actually wants to already start using Qdrant. So it knows some basics, but no, I just don't want to do it right now. Let me just exit and let me add the MCP server. So now when we run Claude MCP list, I should be able to see it. Yeah, and there is an MCP server, and you can also run Claude with MCP debug flag that actually prints some some information about the MCP servers available. You can also see the status of them. Yeah, it actually installs that in background, so we have some debug information, and we see that it was initialized with the default model. So this is actually what we should expect from that. And let me see if that's already running. Yeah, this MCP server is already running in the background, so actually there is no need to set it up separately. Cloud Code will manage that on our behalf. So yeah, let's start implementing. Let's first of all have a look at the README generated. It's very basic. It's a project for live coding sessions with Qdrant vector database and MCP integration. Let's just init it once again, because we finally have everything in place. And our expectation is that there should be also Cloud Markdown file in the root directory. So we are just installing the dependencies right now. Yeah, and Cloud is here. So we have some information. Those are very basic ones. Those are typical for Python projects created with Cloud Code, so nothing that different. But it actually also summarized the MCP tools. Yeah, and even though I provided a pretty long description of these tools and when to use them, this is actually just very concise and quite short compared to the original ones. But yeah, but let's see. And yeah, let's think about the project we want to implement, and we can just write some specification, just not to write everything in the prompt in the CLI. Project functionality. But okay, let's start with some interface. That might be a very simple HTML and CSS file. So let's say frontend, simple, elegant HTML page with a search bar and a list of results, another screen for storing some information in Qdrant, a single input field or text area, data is vectorized, but okay, it's not part of the front end. So let's keep it as a backend. Fast API application with two endpoints, search for looking up for some facts in personal knowledge base. Okay. Yeah, implement a basic structure of the backend. Let's see how it goes. If that's successful, we should also see. Yeah, and this is something that I definitely wanted to show, because it started to set up basic Qdrant client connection, and actually it already suggests to use the tool. This is the query it formulated. So actually, yeah, it's auto-generated by the LLM, and it tries to find that, which is okay. Yeah, let's just allow it to proceed. I won't allow it to always call this tool, because I want to have this visibility. Yeah, it just wants to install Qdrant client, which is okay. That's something that we have to do. And also knows to use poetry for that. So this is nice. It installs the latest version. Probably if you are using an old version of the client, then you would need to specify that somewhere. Maybe Claude MD would be the best place to do that, because it would be just querying with that particular version in mind, but that's okay. But yeah, that's not that different, but yeah, let's just connect it, create it. We have a client already with a URL. That might be not the best idea. Obviously, that works if you have a self-hosted version, but if you are using Qdrant Cloud, then you also need to provide an API key, which is not that's not the best idea to just have very thin decorator like this. But that's okay. Let's just let it do this. Its job. Yeah, there are some functionalities to create collection. One thing which is kind of strange is that I was only asked once if I allow to call our tools, and right now it just tries to use some of its internal knowledge, so which is not that okay, because I just wanted to always use the find tool. Okay. Let me just clear the conversation and see what was generated. We have some very basic collections handling. Let's just remove it for the time being. And let's modify the get client method, accept the API key as well. I just want to make sure that we are able to support both local and remote instances. And then we are just going to get back. Yeah, that's okay. And right now it want to store that piece of code. No, it's actually like a method that I don't want to store anywhere. No, because it's just a function around creating an instance. So no, let's create fast API application as defined in spec. Yeah, we just want to see something that's already working and then fix the fix issues if there are any. Yep, let's just install everything. Let's see if this is successful. Okay, it also started generating some scripts useful for starting the project. Yeah, also changing the README so we can have all the API endpoints listed. Again, it tries to store some code. Let's just allow it to store it. Maybe for some future reference for the purposes of this project that might be interesting, but just to create something that that works, we can just accept all these changes. Let's just call it vibe coding. Right now, create and search code snippets using Fast API and Qdrant. Let's see. I think this should be already implemented somewhere here in the application, maybe. Yeah. We have some code smells here. Okay, so we do not have any vectors right now, but that's okay. Let's just accept it and see what's next. And install the dependencies again. Okay, let me just see whether that works. It's on start. Okay, something is wrong with poetry. Okay, definitely it's not a package. That's something that we probably won't be able to solve with Claude Code. I know it struggled a bit, but if we just set package mode to false, everything should be fine. Yep. Okay, let me just copy it. Let's see if it's able to solve this error. Okay, it started to running the server. Let's see if that leads to anything. But it's just trying to use this file. So let me just have a look. Well, nothing suspicious here. Is actually how we run an application server UV core application. I'm just gonna to stop it right now because that's not the point of that. Okay, we have it. We are connected. So right now let's just focus on the Qdrant itself because we just wanted to see how MCP server can work. So let's build a Qdrant collection with multiple vectors, dense 386 dimensional plus sparse with BM25. So it's doing some checks of the code itself, but it should also find the references to Qdrant and hopefully create this pipeline, this collection in the same file that we used. Unfortunately, that takes some time because it just scans. Yeah, but that's something that's most interesting, like how to it tries to find a code snippet that does exactly this. How to create a collection with multiple vector configurations, including sparse. And I expect there is something like this in our database. And this is quite interesting because here you can see the output of the query call because there are multiple entries. There is some C# code, there is some Java code, TypeScript, Java code again, TypeScript, Rust code, and there is Python code as well. Let's see if that's somehow useful. Yeah, right now it sees that there are lots of different languages, so it directly specifies that it wants Python. So hopefully we can now receive and this results looks a bit more promising. There is still some TypeScript and Java, but there is more Python definitely. But it just reformulates the query a couple of times. Maybe there is nothing that well suited for that task, but finally it decided to write some code. So let's see what was created. once it's all done. Yeah, it wants to store some code. I don't know where it was created actually. It's not here. Maybe in the application itself? Not really. Okay, it just wants to store it, and then it's probably gonna create it in the files. So yeah, let's see how it's gonna work. We have a new method defined here, like create multi-vector collection. So hopefully we'll be able to see it soon, reflected in the code. Yeah, and here it is. Yeah, I want to make this change. Definitely, I want to make this change. I also want to make the change in the collection creation on startup. That's an event that we run when we start the application. So that should be already reflected. Yeah, and I can already tell you that it was successful. Well, I didn't specify all the parameters, so it decided that I just want to store it on disk by default. Like, that's okay if someone wants to do it. But yeah, we can also change it later. But what I can tell is definitely that this call is structured properly. So even if it was trained on a pretty old version of Qdrant that didn't support sparse vectors at this time, it can clearly find it out based on the documentation, because that's used properly. But let's see if the application can right now start. It still wants to create some code in Qdrant. We can keep it. If you don't want to create this code snippets automatically and just want to keep it read-only, that's also going to be a part of the next release. Because in some cases, you may just prefer to have like a documentation of a specific website, specific library or tool, but maybe not a code that was automatically generated. Let's see the current state. Nothing has changed. It's actually just trying to make the changes in Qdrant. Yeah, upsearch with multi-vectors. So I didn't even ask to create it, but it actually tries to generate some helper functions to store data and to search with multiple vectors. I'm particularly interested in seeing how it wanna search with multiple vectors, if that's gonna be okay. Because upsearch is pretty straightforward. We have dense vectors. Sparse vectors are also generated as a dictionary. I'm not really sure. Yeah, this is just formatted properly, so that's okay. But I don't know what's wrong here. IDs are some strings. Payload is, yeah, a dictionary. It's okay. That's how we pass. Dense vectors are lists of floats, which is okay. Okay, one thing that it missed actually is how we pass the vectors, because you don't need to specify vectors and sparse vectors separately. So there is a mistake. But yeah, let me just try to fix it with Cloud Code. I don't want to create any hints. Let's just see whether it can find it in our knowledge base. Let it just finish all the changes. Maybe I will just accept the automatic changes to all the files. If you just want to do the vibe coding, that's okay. But I'm just gonna let it know that something is wrong. Something is wrong with how you store sparse and dense vectors. Fix it. Use the Qdrant code search to find the correct way. Python create collection with multiple named vectors, including dense and sparse vectors. No, I actually meant abserting the vectors, because that's what was wrong. Python absert points with both dense and sparse vectors. That sounds like a good query, and hopefully we should be able to see it. By the way, it's also going to be configurable. Right now we are just returning 10 points, but in the next release we are hopefully going to make it parameterizable from outside, so we could specify maybe you just want to prefer like 20 results. Let's just accept all the changes it makes. Unfortunately, it still struggles with generating that. You pass dense and sparse together in the same dictionary. So this is how it should work. Unfortunately, yeah, maybe it's okay if you just pass vectors. Let's see if it finally is gonna be fixed, but okay, and now we can see. Unfortunately, it was not fixed yet. Actually, the fix is quite easy. I could do it. Search is also pretty interesting because hybrid search is not about querying with multiple vectors. Like you cannot do it, but you need to have like multiple prefetches and then somehow fuse results. Yeah, it's still not ready to be run. Maybe 30 minutes is just not enough to create a running application. Let me just try to convince it to use a new API, because search is a deprecated method. Right now you should be using an absurd. So Qdrant search is a deprecated method. Please use the latest APIs. Okay, it tries to find some method deprecation. Maybe this is successful. I actually don't know if our documentation is so specific that it defines the deprecated method separately. If I can also see that, like, I can also imagine that it's just, yeah, but that's something I wanted to achieve. I don't know what was the context that it generated. Like, I don't want to go through all the entries that we provided as a context, but exactly that's the solution. Like, query points is a new method which is suggested, and search is deprecated. So yeah, let it just use find one more time. And exactly, it should be replaced with query points. It has a slightly different signature, but I knew that. And for anyone who doesn't know how to write code, that might be pretty hard to find an issue. Yeah, I want to create this. Let's just keep all the code generated by the model. Let's just allow to make all the changes, but it's not that easy. You are just not providing all the vectors at once. You need to have some prefetches, so we will still need to figure it out. But that's okay. It just tries to run some formatters. That's fine. We can do it, but still, there are some issues with the code we are able to generate. Probably you would need to spend some more time to just have it fixed. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I need to stop at this point. But yeah, still, like, I think this is pretty interesting concept to have this kind of tools, so you can use the latest versions of the libraries you want to use in the project. Unfortunately, we struggled a little bit with generating that for Qdrant. Maybe the documentation itself is just not enough. Maybe we would also need to index our website, which contains some more complex tutorials like end-to-end implementation, because right now we can only query Qdrant's API, but still you need to create the embedding somehow and somehow combine multiple calls into a full application. But yeah, MCP servers are pretty interesting still, and yeah, I would definitely encourage you to give them a try when you create a project with a library that you don't necessarily know by heart. That might be of a great help. Yeah, thank you very much. Then if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or we can also discuss that later. But unfortunately, asynchronously this time.
Casper, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. This was amazing. You had everyone pretty locked in the whole time. So we have some questions in chat. I don't know if you're interested in answering them or if you want me to handle them. What would you prefer?
Yeah, I can select some of them.
I think
Let me just go.
Which is, what tools can we use for API security?
Well, that's a pretty common question when it comes to using like AI for coding.
Yeah.
I don't know, like still, it can always generate some insecure code, and you have no control. I'm not really sure if there is any tool I would recommend here. Yeah, it's like vibe coding is still not that easy. You need to have some basics to know what's going on. Obviously, you can generate some code that you will be running on your laptop, but if you want to just have an application running in production, then it's not that easy. But unfortunately, I can't recommend anything at this point.
Yeah, I think what Casper's getting at is it's easy to build kind of simple stuff, but all of those little pitfalls that you only get through experience, like the vibe coding, just won't catch that. And if you're pushing into prod, like you're going to run into issues basically. So you still do need that domain expertise. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Casper. You can go to sleep now. I'll have Casper's info up on the screen. Oh, we have another question? Okay. No, we'll do that later.
Actually, I'd like to ask a question. So what tools do you have to integrate with CI/CD?
What tools do we have to integrate with CI/CD? Casper, you want to give that one a shot?
You mean Qdrant? I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but yeah, it's not like integrated with our MCP server. I mean, CI/CD tools. Like, I'm pretty sure that I know that there is like a GitHub MCP server, so maybe you could use that for CI/CD, but definitely that's not a part of our MCP integration, and not the integration of Qdrant itself. Like I'm not sure if I understand, but maybe it's just 4 a.m., so I have some troubles with getting the question right.
Totally understand. On that note, thank you so much, Casper, for coming out. I'll have your info on the screen for anyone who's interested in connecting with Casper. Please go ahead and connect with Casper Lukowski. Casper, thank you so much for coming out. Go ahead and
Thank you.
I'll see you later.
Enjoy. Thanks.
Yes. All right. So now we basically have a little time to hang out, chill. If you guys have any questions about what you just saw, I would be happy to kind of talk with everyone. But yeah, that's the end of the show. Thanks so much for coming out. Thanks for joining us online. This is the first time we streamed and we got really good turnout, so we'll keep streaming them. Thanks everybody for joining and have a safe night. We have one announcement coming. Why don't you come out, make your announcement, sir?
Thank you very much. Hey guys, so I'm Ziv Rosen with a small startup company we're located in Palo Alto, and we're developing technology and products that are using generative AI among other capabilities like machine learning and other enterprise applications. We're serving businesses that use transportation, fleets of vehicles. If anyone is looking for a job in generative AI, in data engineering, or in project management, come talk to me. I'd love to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Awesome. So he just said he's working in Gen AI. If you're looking for work in Gen AI, look for this man right here. He can put some money in your pocket, right? So hey, he's looking for a Gen AI coder. So get a job, learn something about MCP, and get some pizza. That's how we do it around here. Thank you so much for coming out, everyone. Make sure you clean up after yourself, please, and say thank you to the staff as you're exiting. Thank you. Woo!
I mentioned the board.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. Hey,
What up?
I have a quick question. I missed beginning talks.
Yep.
Is the live stream is going to be?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. So if you go on YouTube, you'll be able
AWS
to.
Loft events.
So it's on the Qdrant YouTube, actually.